House Republicans demanding answers from the Biden administration over, quote, alarming surveillance on you, the American people.
So documents show federal investigators asked banks to comb through transactions for terms like MAGA and Trump.
So those aren't the only phrases. Financial institutions were told to key in the aftermath of January 6th.
To put it all together, Brooke Singman, who has written the story on .com, joins us right now with details. Good morning to you, Brooke.
Good morning.
Brooke.
Hey, good morning, you guys. That's right. So House Republicans are now seeking answers from a former Treasury official after the agency told banks to flag consumer transactions that included terms like Trump or MAGA. Documents show that banks were told to search for customer data for other key phrases, including popular sports stores like Cabela's, Bass Pro Shops, and Dick's Sporting Goods. Now, federal officials also asked those banks to comb through customer transactions for book purchases, including religious texts like the Bible and media subscriptions. Officials allegedly said those purchases could indicate extremism. Now, House Judiciary Committee Chairman Jim Jordan, who is leading this investigation, says search of those transactions violate Americans' constitutional rights. Listen.
So it was big banks looking and searching private transactions using key terms at the suggestion of the federal government to find out what you're buying, what you're spending your money on. Scary stuff. All it looks like, without any warrant, without any legal process, they undertook this as a way to identify domestic violent extremism.
Jordan now writing a letter to the former director of Financial Crimes Enforcement Network saying, quote, FinCEN used large financial institutions to comb through the private transactions of their customers for suspicious charges on the basis of protected political and religious expression. Now, in a separate letter, Jordan asked FBI Director Wray to make a senior official available for an interview related to Bank of America. Now, that bank turned over customer data related to the purchases of firearms, hotels, and Airbnbs leading up to and after January 6th. So far, the FBI has declined to comment. Guys.
So it's pretty amazing, Brooke, is that it's not just, well, we're pursuing the answers in January 6th. You're saying prior to January 6th, people were looking for those keywords, right?
No, I'm saying after January 6th. So this all happened in the days after January 6th. And of course, we don't know if there was ever an end date to these searches. Of course, I spoke with a number of sources who told me that these searches and the federal government reaching out to the banks and asking them to hone in on these keywords like MAGA, Trump, looking Dick's Sporting Goods and things of that nature. They say that was happening before the inauguration to make sure that there was no type of violence. But there's never an end date, I'm told, from sources who are familiar with these documents on the search of these terms. So I think that's what Jim Jordan is looking for answers on from these officials.
Right. So it was open-ended as to the end because they didn't know when somebody might be done with whatever they were doing. Sounds like it was all part of the federal investigation. But Brooke, this all happened during the Trump administration.
Sure. It happened in the days after January 6th, of course, which was just 2 weeks, I guess, before the inauguration, January 20th. That is part of the Trump administration, maybe the Biden transition team, but I don't think that's really the issue here. It doesn't really matter which administration this is. I think what Jim Jordan is pointing to is the bureaucracy here looking into Americans' private data, private banking data, the federal government going into the private sector and saying, hey, turn over this data to us because we have a right to look through all of this. Of course, if they were looking to prevent some sort of attack or something of that nature on the inauguration, of course, that would make sense. But Jim Jordan says that Americans' constitutional rights are being violated here and we don't know if they are still searching for these terms in Americans' bank accounts.
Brooke, what were they? So let's say they would go into someone who was there January 6th. They'd look at their financial transactions, especially Zelle. They really were searching Zelle transactions and look and see if anyone put in the memo, any of these keywords, MAGA. Trump, MAGA, and why Dick's Sporting Goods and Cabela to see if they were buying supplies to take with them.
Right. Well, it wasn't. Guns, right? Yeah, it wasn't necessarily just people that were there on January 6th. That was the reason for these search terms to see, if there is some sort of pattern.
The reason was
right. Okay. But in terms of Dick's Sporting Goods and Cabela's and Pro Bass Shop, which none of those businesses responded to Fox News' request for comment on this report. But the reason that banks were suggesting looking at transactions with codes related to those stores is because of what you can buy at those stores,
Right.
whether it was firearms, which Jim Jordan has said that's a violation of American Second Amendment rights. So this is just a larger story here, I think, and we will keep following the investigation to try to get more answers.
Separate from the executive branch.
So basically, we don't have any privacy. This is
Thank you.
such
Thanks,
an
Brooke.
invasion.